felt like no matter how hard you work, you're still constantly putting out fires in your construction business, chasing your crews around and fixing problems that only you can solve? What if the chaos is not around you though? What if it's actually coming from you? In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the patterns that turn good construction business owners into accidental fire starters, how to shift from being reactive, living in the chaos, to intentional leadership. If you're tired of being the bottleneck in your business, this is where we finally change that. So, the first step in ensuring that you're not creating fires that are springing up across your business is improving your communication. So much of construction is tied to good communication, and communication is a skill. It's something you need to practice and improve over time. It's not just talking or providing more communication, but it's actually there's a quality level and a method to communication, which I'll be sharing with you. So if your crews like keep messing up, maybe the instructions you're giving them weren't that clear to begin with, or maybe you're the only one who really understood the plan in the beginning. So often we can easily kind of put things on our guys. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand. I give them instructions, but they still mess up. There, you have to get rid of that thinking and realize, what can I do to make sure that things are clear so that they do follow the plan, so that they have some sort of idea of what's happening. And you also need to realize that you are probably being the bottleneck as far as communication goes, because they've got to, either if you have too many people who are relying on you to provide answers, to provide information, whether that's clients, employees, subcontractors, whatever, right? You need to open up those lines of communication. And one of the great resource or idea to really nail this on the head is have meetings. And I know nobody wants to have more meetings in their schedule. I get it. But having a well thought out and reoccurring meeting can solve so many problems and really provide a platform and a place to get rid of issues, to get rid of miscommunication, so that you're not having to, do all of this communication over the every day or week. So good meetings are have a field crew meeting once per week, probably. You've got to make it make sense for your business, but typically speaking, once per week, little toolbox talk. Everybody jumps on a Zoom call or video call, so they don't need to, you don't need to meet in person for this. 15 minutes, quick check in. Hey, what's happening? Give them any information of what's happening on sites. Everyone kind of touches base. Is there anything we're forgetting about? Is there any tools at any places? Is there any material that needs to get delivered? What's the game plan for the week? Any issues that have come up? Any problems for anybody? And this right there will already eliminate a lot of kind of communication and fires popping up, because everyone's on the same page. And also, if it's an issue that comes up and they know that it's not pressing or urgent, they can tell you in the meeting, or they can tackle in the meeting, instead of you becoming that bottleneck where they've always got to ask you for permission or for advice, or whatever it may be. Now, another good method to improve communication, as I mentioned, this is a skill and you want to improve your quality, is if you're telling someone how to do something and you expect them to do it, but you can tell they're kind of like, you're not quite sure if they got it, ask them to repeat it back to you. I remember I was doing a project, doing a kitchen remodel at the time. I had hired a guy who was pretty new. He told me he did a lot of tiling. He had lots of tiling experience. So I set him on doing the kitchen backsplash. And I get a call from the homeowner, I think that evening or the next day. And they're like, hey, tiles are looking pretty good, except for, behind the stove. They're not level. Something's off here. I'm like, okay, I'll take a look. Let me handle it. So I go there. Sure enough, tiles are drooping. And if I would have asked him, especially because this is one of the first times I believe that I'd asked him to do some tiling work, just ask him like, hey, what is your process for ensuring that the tiling all goes in straight and it's flush? How are you going to be grouting this? What is your process? And then just having him walk through it. And I probably could have caught that he didn't use a straight line or a level or anything when the countertop ended and you went behind the stove, right? So easy fix, but it cost me, I don't know, hundreds or thousands, maybe $1,000 or whatever to straighten out the tiles and materials and lost labor and all that kind of stuff, right? So if someone's not getting something or you're not sure, you'll have those people that say, yeah, we can do it, and they're naturally positive or optimistic, but you're not quite sure. Ask them to repeat back to you and tell them, like, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to make sure that that we're both on the same page and that it's clear, right? And then the final thing with communications that I'm going to mention is expectations. A lot of fires on site, miscommunication, issues, problems, frustrations are due to expectations not being met. And if you're not very clear on your expectations of what you want somebody to be doing or how you want a process to run or whatever, you're leaving the door open for miscommunication and you getting upset because if they don't know your expectations specifically, they're not going to meet them. Same goes for your clients, your employees, whoever. Ask them, what are your expectations of working with me, working on this job, of communication, of whatever, right? A great document for this is having some sort of like what to expect document to give to a client, as well as like an employee handbook. And it just lays out what the expectations are of them, the roles, responsibilities, whatever it may be. And this way, everyone's clear on what to expect. And also, you can then align expectations that are out of whack, right? So if someone has very super high expectations of like, we want to know every single dollar that's spent on this project, or we want to know every schedule down to the day or whatever, right? You can set that expectation that, that's just going to waste a lot of time. I'd have to charge you probably an extra $10,000 on this project just to communicate at that level, if that's what you truly want. And just set those expectations, right? So that everyone knows what they should be thinking about. All right. Moving on, point number 2 here with putting out fires that originate from you as the owner is reflection, having some reflection on issues. If you have the same problem keep showing up on every job, it's not a fluke. It is your signature. It is the way that you are running your business. If a problem keeps persisting over and over again, that is 100% your responsibility. And you need to go from being a problem solver, because we often think, oh, issue pops up, solve the problem, move on to the next day, get through it. And there's this like hamster wheel cycle, right, of problems and fires and things coming up. And you're kind of the hero, the go-to guy to get things done in your business. But you need to get out of that mindset of being a problem solver to being a solution architect. What can I build? What can I do so this never happens again? That should be the thinking here. So things like, especially reoccurring problems like employees, if they're not showing up on time, or if you have even just communication, like an employee always, like when they start, they're always asking like, hey, when we get our paychecks, or hey, where should I be working, or how do I do my time entries, right? All that kind of stuff, recurring issues, recurring questions should be documented somewhere. You should create a system, some sort of whatever it is, but what can you create to make sure that problem doesn't come up, or that piece of communication is handled outside of you specifically having to tell someone. Same with decisions. Often, not often, but it comes up. Sometimes a homeowner will maybe ask an employee, hey, do you mind coming on the weekend to do this little side project or whatever, right? If that's an issue in your company and it's popped up a couple of times, make sure you are communicating with your employee that, hey, if this happens, please let us know. However you feel about it, you can let them know. But if it's like, you do a little bit of side work here and there, not a big deal. But if it's with a client that we are working with, that may be a problem and it can complicate things or whatever, right? So lay that all out and create, be the solution architect in your business, not just the problem solver, that the hero that everyone needs to rely on, and creating that bottleneck. And with solutions, realize that you want to get feedback from people. So not every problem's your problem, right? If the guys on site are calling you about all this kind of stuff, that they should know, set that expectation. I expect you to be able to handle this type of problem, and then get their feedback of like, how can we ensure that you know what to do, or how can I help you, either train you to make those decisions by yourself, and then try and test solutions, right? We'll try this software, try this process, or we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, maybe you tweak it, you fine tune it, or you try something else, right? But always be building something tangible inside your business, systems, processes, whatever, to combat those problems so that you do not have to be that firefighter. It gets taken care of with, your awesome business that you create. So third point here is an organized leader. So leadership, super essential in this whole process. you need to step up and take ownership for the company. Essentially, I'm not going to go down, that rabbit hole on leadership, but that's a huge part of it. But a lot of leadership is leading by example. And if you are unorganized, if your calendar is all over the place, your priorities are changing constantly, or all, you don't really have priorities and nobody knows what really is important and matters, your team being lost, your clients not knowing what's going on, you're the one who's driving the ship and you're the one who needs to be organized and set that example for the rest of the company to follow. And that'll create some consistency and lead by example. So the first thing to do is get a hold of your calendar. If you're not using like a Google Calendar, iCalendar, and putting in blocking time for the stuff that's really important in your business. So if you want to work on systems and processes, block out some time. If you know every week you've got to put in a couple hours of estimating or review your financials, block time in your calendar, because you'll very quickly see that your calendar may fill up with all of this other business stuff that you need to do, and you don't have a lot of time for sites, and you need to start delegating or what have you, as well as meetings. Make sure you're showing up. If you yourself as the business owner are late to meetings, or you're just like always running around nonstop like a chicken with their head cut off, your guys are going to pick up on that energy. They're going to feel like, well, the boss is 5-10 minutes late. Yeah, you're the boss, you got more going on, and you can make any excuse in the book, but ultimately if you're not highly accountable and leading by that example, then you can expect the rest of your business and team to essentially do the same. So it really does start with you. Get a hold of your calendar, block stuff out, schedule meetings, and then prioritize. Prioritize and focus. And by setting priorities, you will know where to focus. So what is the big problem in your business right now? What is the main function of your business that's struggling? What is maybe the one employee that's struggling, or the one job or project, or whatever it may be? But you need to set clear priorities. I like to do this weekly as far as like for tasks, but you should have weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual priorities and objectives that you're going towards, so that you've always got this long view. And typically, even up to 5 years, but start with a year. A year is pretty good. Things will kind of waver and change pretty, over time when you're talking about years. But this way, you've always got your long-term kind of goal that you're driving towards, and then you're during the week and the months, you may do some of this, but at least everything is aligned and you've got your priorities straight. And it'll help you from getting super overwhelmed and stressed, because even if things are kind of a little off the rails or a little unorganized or whatever, if you're spending time and you're tackling what really matters for the long term, you will become successful. And you can rest assured that even if you can't handle everything right now, you're handling what matters. So super important as a leader to set priorities and focus very clearly on those priorities, and block out all the rest of the noise that can happen with running a business. So the other point I'm going to mention as far as becoming an organized leader is starting to bring organization to your business. So structure, documentation, systems, processes, software, all the things that I love. And this is what we do at Rapid Result Creators, is we specifically help our clients implement great systems very quickly, focused on one function of their business at a time. And this has just a virtuous effect, and it is one improvement after another. Once you bring structure and regularity to your business, like those meetings that I mentioned, once everybody knows we have these regular meetings, or once everyone knows like this is our ideal client and services, or we've got this automation set up, or we've got this estimating process set up, or this training process, whatever it may be, every little piece and every little system and organization you bring to the business just builds momentum and creates this like beautiful structure to be able to grow, to scale, to get your time back, to stop putting out fires. And it's just incredibly important. It's a very daunting task to start to build that out. So feel free to reach out to us if you want more information of how we can make that easier for you. If you're going to tackle this yourself, or have already started, prioritize and get clear. If you've got money problems, you want to look at estimating, at financials. If you've got employee problems, you want to look at your HR and training and whatever. So wherever there's issues and things popping up, that's where you need to build out systems, create some organization, build some consistency around the business. And that's how you're going to get your time back, how you're going to get freedom back, get more money in your bank account, all those good things that you started the business for originally, but can definitely go off track and you can get jaded over the years just working in construction. I had someone comment on a video the other day, 10 plus years in construction business, and they were tired, they were sick of it, not making enough money, chaos nonstop. And it is a long road, but you can get there if you're intentional with building a business as opposed to just trying to run an operation to make money, right? Which is where a lot of guys get stuck. So, going on to the fourth point here, find your balance. Life is about balance. Everyone's heard of the work life balance. It's really, you're never going to be 100% balanced, and balance makes it feel like it should be like half and half kind of thing. That's not where it's at. You need to find the most effective balance. And it could be, there's, the 80-20 rule, which is often applicable in a lot of cases. But what I mean by find your balance is you need to, as a manager and a leader, you're going to be having to delegate a lot of stuff. You're also going to have to trust people a lot to be able to get stuff done without you. Having those systems and processes in place makes it so much easier because you know that there's some structure there. But the balance is between trusting too much and just allowing someone to run with something, and then micromanaging. And if you're on either side of that, you need to find that middle ground. And the problem is there's never like a specific place. That's always shifting and moving to some degree depending on the employee or the client or whatever is happening in the business. And as the business grows, it's constantly shifting as well, because as you kind of get off the tools, if you will, you're no longer, as you get off the tools, you're no longer on the site. Later you're going to get project managers. If you're already there, you know how this is. You now have to give trust and space to your project managers. Then you'll level up. You're going to have a sales manager, maybe an estimating manager or design manager, whatever it may be, financial management. You're going to have this layer of management team, and you're going to level up yet again. And every level is going to take more leadership, more skill, and more of this balance between micromanaging to make sure that they know what they're doing, but not in the sense that you're infringing on them or making their life difficult or taking up way too much of your time on things that you should not be doing. At the same time, you give them too much space, you're probably going to lead to inefficiencies. You're not going to really know what's going on, and there's going to be chaos that ensues. So, what I like to see is that structure, like I mentioned, obviously getting the systems, processes, clear roles, responsibilities, all that stuff, and then have some checks and balances. So, whether that is them giving you a report daily, weekly, monthly, depending on the position. Checks and balances as far as quality control, so checklists, things like this, making sure that every project and every communication that goes out is meeting certain criteria. And then finally, the balance with time management. When you start out, you're probably going to spend a lot of time just managing your business. And there is a book called The E-Myth, which puts this very nicely, where there's the technician, there's the manager, and there's the entrepreneur. I believe I've got that right. Technician is kind of where most guys start. You're good at something, you start a business, and you do whatever you were doing before in your business, whatever that may be, managing projects and things like that. The manager is managing people, projects, whatever. And then the entrepreneur is the one who is building the business, providing the vision, the leadership, all of that stuff. And you're going to have certain degrees of balance between those two. At the beginning, you're probably going to start off being mostly technician and manager with a little bit of entrepreneurship. As you level up and move on in your entrepreneurial journey, you're going to be much more at the higher visionary entrepreneur level, business development, and you're not going to be actively managing the business operations and the day to day. So finding your balance is within each of those roles is important to be able to kind of level up and then be able to get out of that day to day, stop putting out those fires, create the systems, the processes, the people, the structure in order to do that well. So now that you know how to get yourself out of that fire starter stage and create a business that doesn't rely on you specifically, and you have to put all these fires, now you're going to want to check out our next video. So go check out this video here on how to avoid hiring the wrong employees that wreck your business and peace of mind. Hiring the wrong employees causes all sorts of fires and issues in your business. So go check out this next video to get the up and up on that.